Hi, everyone. Thank you all for joining. And for those trickling in, just as a quick housekeeping note, if you have any questions during this session, please submit them to the Q&A. They will be answered later. You may have also heard we are recording. So if you have to drop at any point, that's not a problem. This will be available later on jcpinclusion.com. Thank you. And I will turn it over to Ashley.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sarah. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. We're so happy that you're here. My name is Ashley Sorensen. I am the president of Overtone Color. It's one of the newest Juggernaut Capital Partner portfolio companies. And I am also a brand new member to the JCP Inclusion Steering Committee. Before we kick off today's Lunch and Learn with Joyce Lee, I wanted to share a little bit about JCP Inclusion. Our goal with the JCP Inclusion is to help our portfolio companies develop, grow, and thrive to make sure that any person who belongs to any of the companies feels like they truly belong. We have created the JCP Inclusion as a resource and one that offers information and solutions to all diversities so that they're empowered to evolve within our walls and beyond. So this is the second in a series with more formal and informal chats, conversations, and panels to come. Today, in partnership with the steering committee, Laura Hunt-Newman and our Chief Culture Officer at Alorica, Joyce Lee, will discuss creating a culture of connection, creativity, and commitment. I hope you all are as excited as I am. Before we dive in, we're going to have the steering committee member, Tanya King, is going to tell you a little bit about Alorica and Joyce Lee. So I'll pass it on to you, Tanya. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley, and thanks to everybody who took the time to put this Lunch and Learn together, and in particular to Joyce for offering to do this in partnership with us today. We couldn't be more excited about it, as Ashley mentioned. And I personally have known Joyce for many years. I used to work with Joyce at Alorica. And I have to say, when I was thinking about how to introduce her, the list was so long of attributes that I had to focus on narrowing it. And before I even tell you her title and what she does for Alorica, I just want to say, Joyce, first of all, I call you a close friend. You're not only a former colleague, but a close friend. You're an amazing colleague. She's a former lawyer with White & Case before she took over and did amazing things at Alorica on the culture side, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. I personally had to come into Alorica in a chief legal officer job that Joyce formerly did. So I have really big shoes to fill. She's not only an incredible professional, but she's a fantastic mom, an incredible wife, and her two boys are simply, spectacular individuals who she has also involved in the many amazing initiatives at Alorica. Just so great to see. But she is really the brains behind the cultural success at Alorica. And when we were thinking about our next speaker and how we can help our portfolio companies think about engagement when it comes to these important initiatives, the first person who popped into my mind, Joyce, was you. So we're very honored to have you today. And you're such a humble individual with an ability to relate to all people at every level in an organization, which I think has contributed so much to your success and all that you do and Alorica's success as a company. I hope I'm right in saying this, but I know that Alorica was the largest in North America and the third largest in the world. And I wanted to say a little bit about what Alorica is, because it really supports all that Joyce does in understanding who Alorica serves. So Alorica is what's called a business process outsourcing company. It's a people and technology company, basically. Its ethos is really making lives better with every interaction for clients, for customers, for colleagues and their communities, with passion, performance, and creating possibility for its people and its clients. And I have to say, just practically, so when you call various places or you chat online with brands or companies that are important to you in your daily life, it very well could be that you're talking to Alorica individuals, 100,000 of them. So with what all Joyce has done, at the heart of it is 100,000 people. And that's just simply incredible. And the recruitment numbers around Alorica, I think at one time, Alorica had recruited more people than McDonald's in a given year. And that's a lot. Keeping the eye focused and the company focused on how to make sure you're recruiting the best talent, you're retaining the best talent is a really important role. And so what does Alorica do? It helps many brands of all sizes, styles, and strategies take their business to the next level through their customer interactions. And it's the largest certified minority-owned company. Andy and her, Joyce and her husband, Andy Lee, have created this family-owned company, and remarkably, with 100,000 people, has sustained that family feel. I know, I worked there as an executive for many, many years, and it was family. So the various initiatives that Joyce has created, which she'll talk more about during our time with her today. She's Chief Culture Officer, that's her title. But again, she's so much more than a title. She oversees the development and the execution of the programs that support all these activities for these 100,000 people to keep them engaged and inspired. And she's the founder and president of Making Lives Better at Alorica, which is a nonprofit. And Joyce, I hope you fill in the gaps of anything I'm leaving out here, because I know there's so much. But this is a nonprofit that's dedicated to providing assistance to Alorica employees, their families, the communities in which they live all over the world. And I had the practical experience of learning more about Joyce and in part Andy when I first joined the company. We did a tour of the Alorica facilities in 7 countries in 6 days. Yes, 7 countries in 6 days. And their passion for the people, and we're going to show you some pictures in a little while, is incredible. And to say that they are rock stars at every level in every office and facility that we went to is an understatement. Everybody loves the Lees, and the level of engagement and inspiration they get from the top of the organization, and because of what Joyce has built through her culture function at the company, is nothing short of amazing. So I was very honored to work with her on a number of different initiatives while I was at Alorica. I loved the time that we would spend in the office thinking of ideation, and with every initiative that we talked about, Joyce always said, what does it mean for our people at every level in our organization? And I'll always take that as a mentor learning, because I do view you, Joyce, as a mentor of one of the most important things you need to think about when you're doing things as an organization. So without further ado, I think I'm turning it back over to Laura Hunt Newman to walk us through what we're going to accomplish here. And Joyce, again, thanks.
Thanks, Tanya. Hi, Joyce.
Hey, Laura, how are you doing?
I'm good. It is weird to see you in this context. Joyce and I are actually social friends. More than anything else, our children go to school together, and it was such a small world to make this Juggernaut and Tanya King connection. So Joyce and I are used to waving at each other in the parking lot, or maybe a sporting event, or out to dinner or something like that. This is very different for us, but I know we're going to have fun.
Yeah, we have to kind of keep it classy. So yeah,
right, yeah. Exactly.
And before we get started, Laura, Tanya, I just want to say thank you so much for that amazing introduction. I hope I have our head of comms on as well, Sunny. I hope you took lots of notes, Sunny. So that's how I want to be introduced all the time.
Okay.
And all I can say is, working with Tanya, she's one of the classiest people I know. And I always say I want to be Tanya when I grow up. So thank you for having me.
So sweet. Thank you, Joyce. Thank you, Sunny.
So Joyce, let's get into it. We have so many questions for you. I'm going to try to help us be selective and paced. And I'm just going to kind of ask, and we'll listen to you. We'll go about 30 minutes, something like that. For everyone that is listening and learning, first of all, please take notes, but also if we're not getting into some areas where you have questions, there's a Q&A function where you can log those questions, and Sarah Shockley at Juggernaut will collect those, and we will be sure to save some time at the end to get some other specific questions into Joyce. So Joyce, let's start off broadly. Tell us the Alorica culture story. Tanya listed all of these different but reinforcing initiatives that you have at Alorica. And I think what would be interesting, particularly for organizations in the earlier stages, is just hearing the sequence, like how everything evolved over time.
Okay, well, this is going to be probably a long answer, but just, for background, first of all, Alorica is not those people that call you at 7 when you're having dinner and harassing you. I just want to be clear. We're those people that actually help you when you call that 800 number. I've always thought of it as a continuous startup. And the way that we move and evolve and build things, it always seems like we're doing things new a lot. And that comes with good and bad, for sure. We've grown up a lot. Tanya helped us mature and get to another level. But the way that we've always implemented programs has really been stuff that we've developed. And what's really interesting about Alorica is, and Tanya was very sweet to talk about how I ran legal. That was many years ago, many years ago. And I came back after having kids to Alorica, not wanting to go back to doing legal and all that, but wanting to do something else. So we actually started our nonprofit, which is called Making Lives Better with Alorica. And what it is it's really helping people in crisis situations. When there's so many things where one life event, whether it's getting into an accident with your car, becoming diagnosed with an illness, or having a death in the family, that really can change the trajectory of a family from living in a home to sleeping in their car. So what MLBA, that's what we call it, does is it helps to bandage that situation, to get people through that situation versus having to go into crisis mode. So that's kind of where we started. And many of our people, actually, unfortunately, are in those situations. So that's really the premise of what MLBA was about and how it got started. And so it really is different in terms of a corporate philanthropy perspective, because everything starts with our people, even on the philanthropy level. So what we did is we created many chapters, many charities throughout all of our sites. And they run them like little charities. They fundraise their own money by doing old-fashioned things like having car washes and bake sales and just fun things to raise money. And then they are the stewards of that money. Each chapter runs its own bank accounts. It decides its own who they're giving their money out to. And it's usually the person sitting next to them, which is amazing. So from that, they get to decide and help locally on things that matter the most to them. So it's a very personal way to do corporate philanthropy. And what I found is, like when we launched it and it just really took off, people took it to heart. They were so happy and proud to be part of being empowered to be able to do good. And I thought, wow, well, that's a very interesting approach to getting a whole bunch of people involved to do something with no budget, basically. And keep in mind, when I took over, like doing culture, well, not took over, but developed culture, I had no budget, zero. And I think that's something that probably a lot of companies at Juggernaut are very familiar with, launching these programs with no budget. And how do you go about doing that? Well, you have to make it personal, and you have to do it in a way that it's engaging and it's relational for people. And so from there, I'm like, well, if we can do that with philanthropy, what if we did that with culture? And so what we did is we created culture committees in every one of our sites too. And what I found is and this is, keep in mind, the first thing, of course, that I always do is I go and talk to a lot of people, a focus group. And that's a lot of what we did when Tanya and I took the trip to Latin America and we visit all the countries. Andy goes off and does his things, but I always go the other direction and I just focus group and I talk to a lot of people. And from there, you find out, so much about how the organization is run, what they think about culture, what they think about their bosses, their managers, everyday issues about them getting to work, and who they're talking to. And you find out really quickly like who the influencers are. I kind of equate it to like high school, you know, like you have the people in there that know everybody, you know, that are involved. And then you have the people that are hooked up with the teachers and and are running all the clubs and all that. And I go, okay, so I want those people. Those are the people that should be on this culture committee. And I wanted at least one person from every line of business, because you know, you can send out, when you communicate to your organization, especially an organization of 100,000 people, that's still the best way to communicate to anybody is face to face. Like, I don't know, how many times have you gotten an email and you look at the first 2 lines, or you look at the subject and you just, no, I'm not going to read that. I'm not going to read that. But if I sat there and talked to you, Laura, face to face and told you about X, Y, and Z, you'll probably remember that and listen to that. And what's kind of cool is every day before shift starts, our people have what they call team huddles. So they get together and they actually, you know, we are a paperless environment. We're not allowed to have cell phones generally at the desks and stuff because of safety and concerns reason. So they do these face-to-face huddles every time. Now it's probably through Zoom and whatever. But and they get kind of the top news of the day, and it's kind of a quick rundown of things they have to remember. And then I'm like, hey, start putting into that script, you know, little culture things, you know, hey, there's going to be a bake sale that's coming up, or make sure you sign up for this, and make sure you know, do your compliance and all of those things. And it's the most effective way of communicating with people. So when you build these culture committees, you take like the influencers from every line of business that's within the site, and then the HR person, the site director, anything. And you'll find that you are able to communicate to people more efficiently, successfully, and you get to reach, your reach is much more broad in that respect. So that's kind of the model. So we started with philanthropy, and we took that model and built it into our culture.
And then what happened next?
And then, you know, as things evolved, we started doing things like CSR and the diversity and inclusion programs and all that. But everything always started with our people and what they wanted to do, especially when we launched our diversity and inclusion, which we called TIDE, Together for Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity. You know, it was kind of like, for lack of a better word, the flavor of the day. Okay, everybody has to have some sort of diversity inclusion program. Okay, what are you going to do? You know, and I think a lot of corporations tend to go, okay, well, let's find an expert on this. Let's go buy something off the shelf or something like that. Let's start having these seminars. But I go, okay, well, that's one way we can do it. That's never how we've really done stuff like this before. And I go, well, why don't we just start with our people? Let's just have conversations instead of me having focus groups all around the world. Let's just start by having conversations. So that's what we did. We launched this series called Real Talks, and we really started having conversations all around the world with managers, just pulling like 20 people, getting them on a call, and and it's funny because I could see HR's face light up. I'm like, oh my God, you guys are going to have these calls. You're going to talk about, you know, you're LGBTQIA, you're going to talk about sexism, you're going to talk about racism, you're going to have all these conversations. And I said, yeah, absolutely. I mean, these are real conversations that people have around the water cooler, so to speak. So why not have them, right? And so that's what we did. And it was right in the middle of COVID too, which made that really interesting, but that's why the Zoom call works. And what you found was that, you know, people care, of course, about different things depending on where you are. You know, people in the US, and especially at corporate environments, they have a teenager syndrome, which is what I like to call it. Like me, I'm the teenager, everything is about me, and the world revolves around me. But what you find really quickly in an organization of 100,000 people, corporate makes up less than 1% of that population. You know, so when you talk about corporate making decisions, you're talking about like 500 people trying to make decisions for an organization of 100,000. And how in the world can you really make decisions like that if you don't understand what the other 99.5% are really thinking and feeling and wanting, right? So when we started doing this, you know, the tendency was like, okay, well, let's have a mandate and everybody talks about racism. And I go, well, you know what? After having these real talk conversation, racism is a very US more focused kind of social problem. If you go into the rest of the world, like LATAM, they care more about sexism and women working. And then if you go to Asia, it's if it's Philippines, especially, it's the conversation that they want to talk about is LGBTQIA. Now, plus, I think I'm missing probably something there. And so you quickly learn like what are really the things that affect regions versus things that just affect, you know, the US. And so for that, then we decided, well, you can quickly pick out what the global issue is. And that was actually mental health. So we actually did more on a global level to talk about mental health. We started putting in more talks with actually, that's where you do bring in professionals to talk about mental health. We had more seminars around that. And that was the global issue that we talked about. But regionally, they have other things that they want to talk about. For instance, Philippines led a pride talk, you know, and then the US led, we celebrated Juneteenth and we talked about racism and we talked about what it means, what that holiday is, why it's important and how people celebrate it, which is, I thought, the most important thing. Is like, you talk about Juneteenth and these holidays that come in, but let's talk about the people that actually it means something to them, right? From a really personal perspective. So that's how, if you really just take pause to actually listen to your people and what they want, you start to evolve your DEI programs and your CSR and all that through that, through those conversations.
It's incredible. It sounds like a very bottoms up approach from the very beginning and scaled globally. But it sounds like in every initiative that you guys have explored, in every place that you've explored it, it's always had that from the ground up, from the voices of the people philosophy.
Yeah, for sure. And another thing that we're trying to tackle is sustainability. Right? Okay. And what's interesting, we're a company, we don't make anything. If you think about it, we don't have a product, we have a service, but we don't have like a widget that we make. So usually when people talk about sustainability, they talk about, well, how do you make that widget more, you know, cost effective, more environmentally focused and stuff? Well, you know, we don't make anything, and this is, but then at the same time, everybody wants you to report out what are your carbon emissions, what are your XY, you know, we just finished our CDP report. That was fun. But it you know, when you have to respond and you don't make anything, you know, it makes it a little, you got to get a little more creative, right? Yeah. And we have people in our industry, I won't name who kind of fudge it, so to speak. Like they'll pick one country and they'll really like deck it out with the super environmentally friendly sites and whatnot, and then just focus on that, and then, you know, do comms all around that one site in Costa Rica or wherever, right? But then that's not a global initiative, and that's not reflective of your entire global population. So then again, what we did was, I'm like, well, let's not mandate a sustainability drive or whatever. Let's just go out and you guys come up. We had a sustainability contest, and so it was open to individuals or teams or sites. And I'm like, you guys just go out and do good things that are good for the environment, and you tell us about it. You know. And what was really cool, we had someone in the DR planting like 10,000 trees. We had somebody in India who is very passionate about saving our soil and the nutrition and the value that comes out of it. And then we had a lot of people that did beach cleanups, and, you know, they did their own recycling program. And so again, it was another very grassroots way of approaching sustainability. Yeah, well, maybe we don't have a global recycling program, but you know what? We have programs that mean way more to our people than, hey, everyone, like, you know, recycle 10 plastic bottles this week or something.
Yeah. Incredible. So one of the things I'm interested in, and then we're going to bring this to life with some pictures, is more recent research that links organizational culture. So we're talking a lot about very bottoms up culture, whether it's actually culture, like a culture committee, or whether it's philanthropy, or whether it's sustainability. But this idea of organizational culture linked to organizational performance.
Mhm.
Do you see evidence of that influence at Alorica?
Well, I smile because for years and years and years, like it was like you know it's making a difference and you know it's making an impact, but there was no like number behind it.
No measurement.
Yeah, and we just did this. And what we found, we finally took the time to actually crunch the numbers because we actually started to have enough data. And through our MLBA, and everybody, if they want to participate, they can actually do a paycheck deduction from their paychecks. And so what we tracked was the people that were making deductions through their paychecks, and then we tied it to their attrition and how long they stayed at the company. And what we found is, and I have this data, I actually looked it up. If a CSR, meaning a person who works on the phone, a customer service rep, is likely to say 68% less than the average. Oh, okay. They are like their attrition number was 68% less than our global attrition number, which means that they remain employed at Alorica 5.4% longer than an employee. So now we have real hard data that actually shows. And I think it's a testament to the fact that, you know, people feel a connection, people feel something versus Alorica just as a job.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So there's a direct correlation between people who are not just engaged, but actually contributing meaningfully, like with dollars, and their tenure with the organization. So that's very exciting. I mean, first of all, you want to have a healthy culture because it just feels good. You want people to get out of bed and come to work and be happy. But then if you get that lift on the performance of the organization and people's tenure and all of that, all the better, right? And particularly in the context that we're in, where we have investors that are in the background, you know, performance is part of the story. We can't ignore it. So it's great that the connection is starting to become more clear.
Yeah, for sure. And I bet you anything, if I ran the numbers of people who are on the culture committees versus our global attrition, I bet you that there's a lift there as well. We just have
that would be really interesting.
Yeah, I haven't done it, but
I just gave you homework. Sorry, Joyce. All right, well, so let's look at some pictures. Let's bring this to life. And then I have a couple of other questions for you. And then I suspect that we're accruing some questions as we go as well. Is that okay? Are you ready to pivot into some pictures? Okay, Sarah, are you ready to? We've got 3, and Joyce, just tell us what we're looking at.
This is Annie and I stealing babies from Latin America. No, I'm kidding. So in our Dominican Republic facilities, we actually have childcare. And it's something that we've actually wanted to do in all our sites, but US makes that very difficult because of like laws and all that. But we're able to do it in Dominican Republic. And it's such a great way to get people to come to our company because you get free childcare. And it's great. They run it just like a school. They have swing sets and a play yard and everything there. So every time I go to the DR, this is where it's usually our first stop and my last stop. Right? So I just hang out and play with the babies.
That's great. I know Andy has to remember where to find you before you guys leave. Like, where's Joyce? Oh,
yeah, it's not hard.
Yeah, that's fabulous. Let's take a look at the next one. Sarah, you want to do a picture switch there? There we go.
Oh, this is this is our Connect and Learn. We put together our like a little mini convention of when we actually acquired a company, and it was a big acquisition. And we actually doubled in size then. And so a way to bring everybody together, we thought, well, let's bring our top managers to Vegas. And we called it P3, which is our values. It's our passion, performance, possibilities. So we called it P3 and Connect and Learn. And what was great about this is we had it was almost like a fair. And this was before, a lot of people were doing these kinds of calls and stuff. And we had booths for every one of our areas, and like our global services had one, our North America or whatever. And what was great is we got to share each other's tools. It was a big learning event for everybody. So everybody got to see what other departments were building and developing. And we're like, hey, they're doing this in Philippines. We want that in Latin America and all that. So it was a great way to connect. And of course, we just had a great time having parties and having lots of fun. So
yeah. Well, let's hang out here for a second, because this connects to another question that I had for you, because it sounds like part of the agenda here. Well, first of all, I think this is a very cool way to kind of do a post-merger integration. So I'm just filing that one away. But then also there's a learning component, right? But celebration too. It sounds like there's kind of a celebratory aspect. And this was a question we had for you, as how does Alorica, and this is one example, but we'd love to hear others, celebrate your cultural successes? Like, what are the mechanisms and platforms that you guys use that you would recommend to others that are trying to figure this out?
Well, we do celebrate like through social media, through comms, we do Facebook and Instagram and those kind of great things. But I like to send old-fashioned emails, and we celebrate people's birthdays and holidays, just like a family. And I love celebrating, I call it Alora anniversaries, their service anniversaries. And I'll just send them an email, and it's usually a Bitmoji that says happy anniversary or happy birthday, and I do it for our directors on up, but I expect that the sites, they celebrate people's birthdays and anniversaries, whether it's in their calls or comms or newsletters or whatever. So everything gets just like a family, like, you come over and you celebrate Uncle Joe's birthday and all that. So I just send people emails all the time, or I'll call them, or I'll send them IMs or something like that with some crazy meme.
That's great. But part of what you're saying is you got to track it and be on top of it, right?
Yeah.
And then, so it has to be meaningful. It has to matter to pay attention to it. And then, you have different ways that you, depending on who it is and so forth, that you recognize it. It's tangible.
For sure. And what was funny was, when the culture committees, that's one of their duties, is to celebrate people's birthdays and anniversaries.
I see.
But they didn't have that information because of HR blocks and stuff. So we actually created a special portal just for our culture committee. You can't get in Oracle data normally unless you're on part of HR. So we created just a little special portal for our culture committees just to go on and check people's birthdays and anniversaries and all that stuff.
Such a smart workaround.
Yeah. So
I'm actually taking notes. I hope other people are taking notes. So I'm getting all these ideas. And I'm on your MLBA Instagram feed. I follow you guys. And I know, I'm in there multiple times a day following all kinds of crazy different things, kid related, dog related, and otherwise. And it's a very lively feed. It's from all over. I'll go in the morning and there's something in there from one part of the world, and I'll go in like right before bed and there's something at a completely different part of the world. So it's very energizing, actually, just to kind of be on the periphery of the culture at Alorica.
Yeah, and that was the other thing that we made very grassroots too, which is very unusual for a company, is we made our social media grassroots. So you
guys don't control that. It's by
we have, what do we call them, as social media people in each of our culture committees, and social media aces, that's what they're called. And they actually are responsible for the social media pages, because, otherwise we have to hire like 10 people to run, all of our social media pages. And then we gave every site their own social media page. So they get to celebrate, the local fundraisers that they do, the little birthdays that they do, and all that. Again, it's a big HR, because you find that corporations are filled with control freaks, right? I'm not naming names, but no, it tends to be, oh no, we can't do that. They're going to go off the rails or whatever. Yeah, well, you just take it down. You have people monitoring it, but at the same time, you know, you're empowering that site to celebrate all the things they want to celebrate. You know, so they get to celebrate when they do a beach cleanup, or they're celebrating someone's birthday, or they're celebrating some top performer. You know, so if you give people the tools. And I always think of that book, If You Give a Pig a Pancake, but
yes,
but if you give people tools and you give them that ability to empower them, you know, they do great things and they feel responsible, right?
And connected, and they stay and they perform.
And guess what? You don't really have to pay them more, generally, you know? And that's how I'm able to create a culture with no budget, basically.
Right, bringing it back to that.
Right. Each of the sites have their own budget, but they had that budget anyways, and they do it to buy pizza for everybody or whatever, you know, those kinds of things.
Incredible. So incredible. All right, let's take a look at the last picture, the final picture here. Tell us about this one. And then I have like 1.5 more questions, and then we'll open it up.
Oh, this is okay. So this is when we went to Jamaica and we were building our newest site. Normally, I do not dress like that at all when I go on site visits. Like, heels are out of the question. And it's kind of ironic that we're at a construction site in heels. But that was the day that we were meeting with the president of Jamaica, the prime minister of Jamaica. Yeah, so we kind of had to look a little respectable. But that, again, that was part of our Latin America tour, and one of our new sites that was going up.
Sorry to put you on the spot, just like ballpark it. How big of a site is that in terms of like head count?
Probably a couple thousand. Yeah, which is pretty typical in everywhere, actually. In Philippines, we actually have super sites that are about 6,000 to 8,000 people.
Yeah, but a few thousand people for a country as small as Jamaica, that's a big deal.
Oh yeah, and we're not the only player. There's lots of players in Jamaica. So a lot of people tend to jump around. So that's why it's really important for us to stand out in some way. You know, and culture is a big part of getting people to stay longer.
As we've discussed. Well, practicality aside, you and Tanya look fabulous, and you should bring your hat to school parties or something like that.
And it is the Lorca color, so.
Oh, really? Great.
Blue and orange. Yeah.
All right, Sarah, thank you for helping us with the pictures. Perfect. We'll take those down. Okay, so let's turn the coin a little bit. Joyce, tell us, for organizations of any age or stage, that's really trying to think intentionally about building culture, maybe philanthropy, which is a very cool variation of that. Certainly DEI. What cautions or watchouts would you offer? Looking back, is there anything that you would have done differently?
I would have done differently. No, I mean, if I could have, I probably would have given them a little budget, which always helps. But you'll find that when you start doing stuff like that, if you I almost want to say, if you deprive people of certain things, they figure it out pretty quickly.
There's research about this. It's the power of constraint, right? You use it in innovation design too. It's like less is more, what necessity is the mother of invention, all of that. So that's real.
Yeah, and what's interesting is, like, I always push back on it, just because the tendency is like, hey, let's all go get shirts for everybody, right? Let's go buy tchotchkes for everybody first, and then let's launch it. And I'm always like, well, let's just launch it first, right? And then let's see what happens, right? And I think, I guess this doesn't really answer your question, but I think this is where you gotta have to be like less of a control freak, right?
Mhm.
And then just let people happen. Because when we actually first launched MLBA, you know, the direction that, of course, we got from our finance people was like, oh, there's no way that you're going to let these people control the money, you know, in a charity.
Mhm.
And so we actually, like, you know, controlled all of these. There's like 50 accounts, and then we actually had to hire somebody specifically to reconcile. And I was like, no, let's not do that. Let's not do that. Let's just let people do it and let's see what happens. And so now I'm really, really proud to say that there's probably about $1.3 million in money in the charity, in the accounts all around the world. And through that, this time, it's been now like 5 or 6 years since we've been doing this. We've only had 3 instances of fraud. And one was like someone actually went and bought lunch for themselves for like $20 or something. But that's it. That's it.
That's
You know, we have way more on the Alorca level, right? All the time. You can ask Tanya about that, right?
That's a different webinar. We'll do that later.
But on the MLBA side, and that's what I'm saying, if you allow people to be good stewards of you know, what they're really passionate about, you know, they'd really take it to heart and they're very responsible for it. So anyway, I guess that's not really answering your question, but that's why I was like, you know, have a little faith in people.
That is a watch out. That does answer the question of watch out. Don't be a control freak. Just start. Just don't get ready, get started.
Exactly.
So, fabulous. Okay, we're going to end this part because then we're going to move to questions. But I know that you have some life lessons that you sort of carry and share. I have been the beneficiary of them. Will you share those with me?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I get asked a lot is, how do you get through life? Like, do you have some life lessons? And yeah, I have 3 things. And the first one is, and I always try to do it in a memorable way. So because people have very short memories, including myself. And the first one is drink lots of water. And it's very important for everybody to drink water, and water gives you life and stuff. But what I mean by that is you create a habit, right? Drinking lots of water is a good habit to have. So if you have a good habit that you do, it gets you through like the worst parts of your life. You know, when everybody has those days where they don't feel like doing X and Y, and like coming to work is probably like very low on their list. But if you have those habits that you have to do, whether it's like you have to drive your kids to school, you got to make dinner or whatever, having those habits kind of get you through until you get to the other side of whatever you're going through. So drink lots of water, create a good habit. The second one is poop every day. Because pooping is good for you. Everybody can acknowledge that. And what I mean by that is you got to get rid of waste in your life, right? There's so many things that weigh people down because they can't forgive somebody. They, you know, are upset about something. They're angry about something. And you have to make a conscious choice because Lord knows, like sometimes if you wait until that feeling has passed, it'll be like years later. So you sometimes have to make that conscious choice to poop every day and expel all of that negativity out so that you can be a more positive person instead of having this weight of negativity following you around. And then my last life lesson is laugh. Like just laugh about something or just laugh. Like laughter, I think, is the best way to instantly kind of change the body chemistry of yourself and your mood. And it's also a great connector, you know, whether you're meeting with friends or clients or anybody. It's a great way to just instantly put people at ease. So I used to carry around a book of dad jokes, right? Or just anything, you know, and the best thing to make people feel at ease is laugh at yourself. You know, use yourself as a. So those are my life lessons, for good or bad, you know, take them as you will.
Thank you for sharing those with us. Much appreciated. So let's switch gears just a little bit. Sarah, do we have some questions from the group that we can spend time on?
Yes, I got, well, one's a comment so far, and folks, please feel free to send in questions if you have been holding them in. As Joyce taught us, you have to let some
Spell your questions, please.
Yes, speaking of which, yes, from, I think, yes. John Pearson at French Transit has would like to share the comment that the best advice he's ever heard on a webinar is poop every day.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes. Transitioning over to a more serious question, Sandra at IBG wants to know, did you survey the team to gain a baseline understanding of DEI within your company to identify gaps and opportunities? If so, how did you go about developing this survey?
No, we did not survey anybody. All we did was we started having conversations, and that was the Real Talk session. I'm like, yeah, you could survey, but what are you going to ask them, right? Is there, that's where the survey gets kind of goofy, but like if I could get way more information out of a 10-minute conversation with somebody than out of a 1,000-person survey, right? So that's why, like, I wanted to first just have conversations, just talk, and I would just like listen in on all of these conversations. Some were in Spanish, which made that really interesting because Google Translate is very slow. But if you just start talking to people, and what's great is like, I think some of your organizations are probably 30, 40, 50 people, right? You can easily talk to all of them, right? And it's a great way to learn a lot about where people are coming from, what they're understanding, what they're thinking and feeling. So I would say just go start having conversations. And by the way, you're not the one that has to run all of them. You have to just go out and tell people like, hey, go have conversations. And all of a sudden, you know, I think the first year we had probably like 40 or 50 of them, and it's all around the world. Mm-hmm. And I had them do it in their native language, whatever made them the most comfortable. So that was really helpful too.
Excellent, thank you.
Can I weigh in on one element of this conversation? So I think one of my biggest learning, so I candidly, and I have a total comfort level with this, was one of those control freaks that Joyce mentioned.
I wasn't referring to you, Tanya, by the way.
but I know that I have a tendency, particularly in the executive capacities that I served in, compliance and HR and legal and strategy. And one of my best learnings from Joyce and her team and all these culture champions was exactly what Joyce just mentioned. Like, so many times we gravitate toward, we got to do a survey, we got to push out a survey monkey, and then we got to calibrate all those results, and then we got to think about it at the executive level and how we're going to respond to it. And I really learned in my experience at Alorica that the best way of getting to the best result was those conversations. And when Joyce invited me to attend all of those, I learned more in those sessions on that trip than I probably have learned in my entire career doing a survey, and got more context. I think context also is so important. So when you're looking at something like DEI, and Joyce, maybe you can let us know how the DEI initiative itself emerged from all of this, like the platform itself. But when you're looking at that, so much of it is shared within the hearts and minds of people. Like it's sensitive. Mm-hmm. And people will look at a survey question and think, I don't even know how to answer yes or no to this. Like, I can't, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that's what was really interesting. And, you know, when you talk about our Tide initiative, like the Real Talks are like the majority of our Tide initiative. You know, and we continue to have them. And again, we created Tide committees and Tide leaders and all that. And we actually operationalized too, by the way. And actually we have care committees now that help us on the operational side. So we've used this committee thing to almost every purpose. And what's great about the Tide thing is that you start to find out who's really passionate about, tied in diversity and leadership. And and I'm like, have those people give talks, right? I found out more about the definitions of LGBTQIA plus in any, from our own people. We actually had our own webinar, and we had a representative from each of those categories, talk about what it means to them, why is it called, what's the definition, what they prefer to be called, and how they want to be addressed. I learned more about that in our own webinar than anything you could buy online off the shelf from any expert, so to speak. People are experts of themselves. So let them share, who they are, how they want to be addressed, how they want to talk, what they think and they feel and all that. And you just highlight and celebrate that.
That's great. Any other questions, Sarah, that we should spend?
Nothing in so far. That's
fine. I just didn't want to leave anybody.
Got a brief window here before I will disappear off the screen and turn things over to Ashley for. All right.
Okay, I just didn't want to rush anyone if there were other questions that were feeling really important. All right. Well, I think, Joyce, I want to just say a huge thank you from all of us at the steering committee and the Juggernaut family for sharing your words of wisdom and life lessons with us today. It's super inspirational and super helpful. And I do encourage people to, everything is laid out. We almost showed this, but people can go on their own time. A lot of your culture's stance and messaging and kind of the ethos of the organization are very evident in the website. So if you just go to alorica.com, you can get some more ideas. And also then on Instagram, which I mentioned before is super lively. You can kind of really get a sense for the pictures and the people and the conversations and the colors, everything. It's really incredible. So thanks again, Joyce, for sharing.
Thank you so much for having me. And it's awesome always, Tanya, to see you and to talk to you. And again, thank you for that beautiful introduction. And I miss our time together late in the office with your dog.
Likewise, I miss you immensely, and you're such an inspiration. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And Laura, we have very fond memories of our kids doing funny things.
funny things.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, great. And now our kids are graduating this year together. So it's been a really fun journey. And
it's been such a journey.
Always fun getting together with you.
Same. Well, I know I will get to see you a bunch this year. So I'm not quite as nostalgic, but I am very appreciative. And now, Ashley, I think we're going to turn it over to you to just share a few words with the Juggernaut Capital crowd about these lunch and learns and beyond.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I just wanted to echo, wow, that was just an inspiring conversation. My wheels are turning over here of how and what our organization can do to continue to evolve. So Joyce, again, to echo, just on behalf of JCP Steering Committee, the managing partners, and all of the portfolio companies, I just really want to extend a sincere thank you. So we appreciate your time. You're an inspiration, and we know that your ripple effect will just be so powerful across all of our companies. So.
Thank you. Thank you again for having me. And if people feel free to reach out to me. My email is pretty easy. It's joyce.lee@alorica.com. So if you have any questions or if there's anything I can help you with, please feel free to reach out. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Joyce. And with anyone on this call, if you want to share this recording with your network or learn more about the JCP Inclusion Initiative, you can visit our portal. That's jcpinclusion.com. I don't know if Sarah, maybe we can put it in the chat, and it was in the email invites that have gone out. This portal really contains valuable resources, articles, podcasts, recordings just like this on women in the workplace, creating diverse and inclusive workplaces, performance, innovation. It's a wealth of knowledge. And this is only the beginning. We're definitely excited to build more with the JCP Inclusion together with you, with our portfolio companies. So if you want to keep hearing from us and keep informed of what's going on, go to the website, sign up there, and you can receive the quarterly newsletter that goes out. Also, we are launching an ambassador program. So if you're interested in being an ambassador for the JCP Inclusion Initiatives, just email Sarah. Her email was on the invite, and she will give you more information on how to be an ambassador. And then last but not least, I just wanted to mention, keep your eyes open for our next speaker series. It's going to be a fireside chat with John. John Schulman is our founder and our managing partner. He'll lead us through a chat with a very special guest. I'm not going to give it away now, but keep your eyes open. And again, thank you so much for all of your time and energy today, Joyce, Laura, and Tanya. We really appreciate you. And thank you everybody for joining our Lunch and Learn webinar. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.